Daniel Sports Central, we go over a college football game preview and prediction on the ACC Championship matchup between the Louisville Cardinals and the Florida State Seminoles. Two teams that have had great seasons getting to this point, and it all comes down to this for the ACC title. Florida State, 12-0 on the season. This team very much a national contender at this point in the season. But this team is facing a bit of uncertainty right now. No more Jordan Travis. There's a lot of doubters on this Florida State team right now. So, you consider that, and you consider the quarterback situation. This is a great chance for Florida State to prove they're still the same team as they take on Louisville. The Cardinals 10-2 on the season. This team is under a first-year head coach. Jeff Brom has done incredible things already with Louisville, and this team finds themselves in a conference title game, and no better way to cap off Jeff Brom's first season in the ACC with a title. We'll be covering a full game preview and prediction on this matchup here today. Let's get started with your team trends. Florida State beat Florida 24-15 last week on the road. Nice win for the Noles there. I know that Florida is not a very good team, and that was a matchup that was pretty ugly at first, but what truly matters is that Florida State found a way there. And I know that the quarterback situation, everything that's happened there, that's something that's going to it's going to take a little bit of time to get used to it with Roadmaker in there instead of Jordan Travis, especially when you consider how significant of a player Jordan Travis is. He's one of the best quarterbacks in the country. So to lose him is obviously brutal. And this team's ceiling it appears to be a bit lower at this point without Jordan Travis, but you got to remember too, this is a team with experience, and they're more than just Jordan Travis. You look at this offense, the brutal defense. This is a team, they held Florida to 15 last week. Florida's actually a pretty solid offensive team. So, this defense is good, and they are still very much a national contender and a team not to be overlooked at this point. Louisville on the flip side lost to Kentucky 31-38 last week. Probably a game this team should have won. Kentucky is a decent team, but Louisville overall is better. And you think back to the game against Pitt, that's the only other loss that Louisville's taken this season. And that was obviously a very confusing loss there. But you look at how this team has played against their toughest opponents. That's what's really stood out to me. You consider the Duke matchup when they were ranked, and even you think back to the Notre Dame game when they played them at home, a top 10 team at the time, and they were dominant in that matchup. This team really shows up when they have to take on a tough opponent. So, and that's something too. You consider Jeff Brom at Purdue the last few years. Purdue played their best whenever they played a tough opponent, and that is the same case for Louisville this season under Jeff Brom. Definitely something interesting to keep an eye on there. Games be on Saturday, the 2nd in Charlotte. Your kickoff is 8 p.m. Eastern. Spread's going Florida State by 2.5, so I think this is the closest spread for any conference championship this upcoming week, and rightfully so. Over-under is 48.5. The FBI is going Florida State here pretty heavily, actually, 74%. Look at the series history. Florida State leads at 17-6. We saw the Noles win the last matchup, and 3 of the past 5. Your stat comparison, Florida State 13th in points per game, 10th in points allowed. This team is 26th in pass yards a game. Obviously, though, that's something that you could probably weigh down just a bit with Jordan Travis being out here. And you look at the rushing game for Florida State, you got Trey Benson, who's had a good season. He's really, he's a good running back who's rushed for over 800 yards on the season, 14 touchdowns. But that's nothing that's a huge standout. So, and obviously the rush game is something this team might need to lean on a bit more as we move forward. But you look at the defense, really strong pass defense here with Florida State. They're 14th ranked in the country against the pass. You look at Louisville, this is a pretty balanced team here. They're 38th in points per game, 27th in points allowed. They're especially good against the run. And you look at the quarterback situation, Jack Plummer has passed for nearly 3,000 yards on the season. He's had a pretty good year, along with 21 touchdowns and 11 picks. So he turns over the ball a bit more than you would want him to. But you also got to consider Jawar Jordan, who's had a really good season as well, right around 1,100 yards and 13 touchdowns. So, Louisville's a strong team on both sides of the ball. They do allow a decent amount of points, especially down the stretch. So that is something that concerns me a bit. But offensively, they tend to get it done most of the time. In recent matches, Florida State beat Florida on the road by 9. They also beat North Alabama 58-13. Beat Miami by a touchdown, beat Pitt on the road 24-7. Also took care of Wake Forest 41-16. So November, Maybe not quite as good of a month. I mean, but Miami's a halfway decent team, so you probably don't expect to beat them by a lot, even though, I mean, we've seen this team be dominant for a good part of the season. But for Louisville, lost to Kentucky by a touchdown, beat Miami, though, the week before by a touchdown, beat Virginia by a touchdown, UVA, one of the worst teams, probably in the Power 5 this season, probably should beat them by more. But did beat Virginia Tech 34-3 and beat Duke 23-0 once again. I mean, Louisville is a team that kind of plays to their opponent. I mean, they've had a couple of dominant wins against bad teams, but I mean, you look at the way they played against Notre Dame once again, the 33-20 win there against a top 10 team, and obviously the shutout game against Duke, 23-0. They really play up to their competition. So no matter what happens, for Louisville, it's going to be a close game. I can't imagine the Cardinals would get blown out here. Your key points: Florida State. Noles are undefeated, but without Jordan Travis, that's obviously the big asterisk that you could say that's on this team right now. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again. This is a team that is much beyond Jordan Travis. I know that he's the biggest name of this team. He is a significant quarterback, one of the best in the country. But this team is experienced. I mean, you consider last season, the way this team really started to rise and how much they returned from last season. This is a team that's experienced around this offense. The defense especially has been brutal this season. It is really tough to score on this Florida State defense. So, then obviously offensively, they still face a bit of uncertainty, but they did start to click a bit in that second half against Florida, even though the first half was definitely ugly. But a win likely advances Florida State to the playoffs. You look at the implications for Louisville, I feel like no matter what, Louisville's probably headed to the New Year's Six. If Florida State wins this matchup, they're probably headed to the playoff. Louisville goes to the Orange Bowl to take on Ohio State, I would assume. And if Florida State loses and Louisville wins, that probably also, I mean, that obviously sends you to the Orange Bowl then either way to take on Ohio State. So I think that bowl game is pretty much set in stone already. Louisville and Ohio State in the Orange Bowl. But for Louisville here, obviously to win an ACC title with a first-year head coach would be pretty incredible for this team. And they play their best once again against tough teams. That's definitely something to keep an eye on, and I think that's a big reason why. I mean, the spread opened at 4.5 points towards Florida State. It has since gone down to 2.5. I think people are kind of catching on that Louisville's got a pretty good chance to win this matchup. And so with that, let's get the prediction here for Florida State and Louisville coming up here in the ACC title game. And in the end, I am going with the upset here. Louisville's going to win this matchup 23-20. I do think they find a way to beat Florida State. And once again, Seminoles should not be overlooked. I do have them losing this matchup, but I still think Florida State has got a pretty good chance to win this game. I know everyone thinks they're counted out, no more Jordan Travis and everything, but I mean, once again, this team is talented beyond him, and even though I think they could definitely win this matchup, I think Louisville's going to find a way. We've seen the way that Jeff Brom and the way that Louisville plays against their toughest opponents, and I think they really show up in this matchup. They have a huge game, and in the end, they find a way and beat Florida State 23-20. So I'm going to say Cardinals 55%. I'm also taking the under. I do think we see more of a lower scoring matchup. Florida State's defense is going to need to be strong in this matchup if they want to find a win. I feel like they kind of understood that in the Florida game. They held a pretty good Florida offense to only 15 points. I think they hold Louisville to 23, but in the end, I do think the Cardinals find a way to hold Florida State to 20. So it's definitely a game that could go either way. This is probably the main conference championship that is pretty much a coin toss. Really could go either way. For Louisville, I mean, the outcome in a bowl game is pretty much the same. They go to the Orange Bowl no matter what. The big implication is for Florida State here if they can get to the college football playoff. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below on this matchup, and I appreciate you guys all watching as always. Stay tuned for more from All Sports Central. Catch you on the next one.